Support this podcast via our Patreon and get more writerly goodness. Visit patreon.com/nanocast to join up.
Welcome to NaNoWriMo Every Month. My name is J. Daniel Sawyer. I'm the author of some 20 books, 34 short stories, and numerous articles and other things, and I am your guide on this journey to use NaNoWriMo to level up to professional output levels. Welcome to The Questions, Episode 101. Today, Dave asks, what kind of resources can you recommend in order to find peers to work with so that we can share our various works with each other? I belong to CritiqueCircle.com, but on that site I find too many people on it lack the ability to read clearly. I will submit something asking about, how does this character feel? And they will return my submission with all sorts of spelling corrections and completely ignoring my single posed question. Please understand the above example is hypothetical and not literal, as I do use Microsoft Word and can find the spell check button. I'm also a member of Meetup.com and 2 writing groups in my local area, but even with these in-person groups, others are not as serious as I am, and I get the feeling they only show up for bragging rights. I equate it to kind of belonging to a wine and book reading club just so you can drink the wine. Well, Dave, you have identified one of the intractable common problems of the serious writer. Most writers that you meet aren't serious. They're in love with the idea of writing or the glamour, but they're not really in love with writing. A lot of them aren't even really serious readers. There's 2 kinds of people that make really good beta readers. What I'm about to say comes from my experience and observations, and I doubt that it's a complete account of the matter. So take it for what it's worth with the requisite number of salt shakers. In my experience, there's 2 kinds of people that make really good beta readers. The first kind is a writer who is invested for some reason in your career. Either you've got solidarity going on, you've got a competition going on, they're a friend of yours, what have you. And they want to see you succeed, and they want to succeed, and they want mutual advantage thing going on. The other kind of person who makes a really good beta reader is someone who doesn't write at all, and particularly someone who doesn't really want to. What happens early on is, and you've got a piece of it with your notion that people are showing up for bragging rights. Hobbyists do not like people who want to become professionals because it shows them up for the hobbyists that they are. And even worse than that, it shows them up as being fundamentally unserious about their hobbies. This is not a good position to be in as a hobbyist who wants to feel superior or who's in it for the ego, who wants bragging rights, that kind of thing. So those hobbyists have the incentive of tearing you down while looking like they're attempting to help you. Because looking like they're helping you is good social cred, and tearing you down is good social insulation, because they won't have anybody else showing them up for being fundamentally unserious. This is why in the earlier episode about writing groups, I was so iffy about the value of writing groups, because this kind of thing goes on a lot. There's a few things you can do about this. One is to look around to friends and family for avid readers. People who don't really want to write, but who really love a good story. Everyone's got that friend or two who is always checking out books from the library, who's always got a long-ass queue from Amazon, who's getting shipments all the time of fresh books, who haunts the local bookstores. That person might be a good beta reader. It's worth approaching them and saying, hey, you read the kind of stuff I'm trying to learn to write. Would you be willing to read my stuff? And just tell me as a reader what you're thinking about it in a running commentary in the margins. Do that if you think you can take it, because they will tell you things you don't want to hear, particularly early on, but even later on. If they don't like something, they will tell you, and if your ego is not sufficiently distanced from your output, it can really hurt, and it can slow you down or stop you. There's 2 other places, and one of them you've probably already tried. I found early on, a lot of solidarity through artists groups that formed at various churches that I attended. For some reason, it might have been because it was the Bay Area, it might have been the particular denomination I was hanging around in. At every church I went to, there was a balkanized community of artists who were part of the community, but who felt kind of alienated, and so they had a Bible study group or a support group or whatnot. And those tended to be pretty healthy, supportive environments. And none of the people that I encountered in them were professionals, in the sense that they weren't like highly ambitious. Everyone there was trying to make a little money off their writing or whatever art they were doing, but most of them weren't really highly ambitious, but they were all very supportive. It was a cultural thing. I think it came from the common thing of being the out group in a larger community. But unlike a lot of balkanized outgroups that I've been a part of over the years, this outgroup was very encouraging of people outgrowing the community and moving on to better things. I was involved in 4. One of them I started, and it ran into the problem that you're having. I had a lot of friends that also wrote. We got together for coffee, but none of them were terribly serious, and so as it became clear that I really was serious and I was the only one showing up with manuscripts, they all started to fall away. A couple of them got nasty, but most of them just didn't have the time for it anymore. The other 3 I was involved in were ones that I came into in progress. They were fairly mature groups, and they were really good environments. I don't know why they were good environments, but it might have been because it was Silicon Valley, but they worked very much like tech incubators, right, where they had sort of designed themselves to be launching pads. So if you can find a group like that, if you're a churchgoer or if you've got a community nearby that's got a balkanized subset of artists, you might be able to stumble upon a community like that. If you're not a churchgoer, or if you don't have a balkanized community subset like that nearby, the really dependable way, because that way's kind of iffy, the really, really, really dependable way is to start associating with professionals. Make it a point to get to some professional workshops. And there's 4 sets of professional workshops that are in-person workshops that I'm aware of that are really, really good running in the United States right now. I'm sure there are a lot more, but there's 4 that I'm directly aware of and can vouch for, either because I've been to them or people I respect have taught at them or people I respect have been to them and given them astounding reviews. One of them is the Writing Excuses Retreat put on by the guys at Writing Excuses, and I know I did an episode talking about all the things I disagree with them on, but they are fantastic teachers, and they are all very good writers. And because I have a disagreement with them does not mean that you should ignore what they say. Just take what I say, take what they say, form your own opinions as works best for you. Another are the in-person workshops and the online workshops given by Dave Wolverton / Dave Farland. For the purposes of what you're talking about, you want to be at the in-person workshops because you want to be able to network with other professional writers. You want to be able to get on mailing lists and form relationships with other professionals. Kevin J. Anderson's Superstars Writing Seminar is really, really good. It's really, really good for the networking. The content is really, really good. I haven't been to it in person, but I have bought the audio post-hoc on a couple of different occasions and listened through and always found it very useful. If you're early in your career but really serious about what you're doing, that is a very, very good one. Unfortunately, it's not cheap. Frankly, none of these are cheap. These are all going to cost you a pretty penny. There's tuition, and then there's travel, and then there's room and board. And so you can expect to drop anywhere from $600 to $2,000 on anything that I'm listing here. But it's money really well spent. Just pick the one that sounds like it's going to be the most advantageous for you educationally, and then network heavily with the other writers when you get there. And then there's the Oregon Coast Workshops in my hometown, put on by Dean Wesley Smith and Christine Catherine Rush at WMG Publishing. You can get a list of them in the Coast Workshops tab at deanwesleysmith.com. If you come to one of those, you'll probably find me among the audience attending because I'm always looking to up my craft too. And they're right down the road, so they're easy for me to get to, and I don't have to worry about room and board, which is nice because I live here. But those are really, really good, and if you're looking particularly for networking with a large group, their business classes tend to attract very large crowds, and you can meet a wide variety of writers, all of whom are very serious professionals and who take their business and their craft seriously. And that's true for most of these workshops. You're going to find people who are really serious about what they're doing and who you may be able to strike up a good relationship with for that, or who at least be willing to be pen pals with you. And pen pals can really help. Other less reliable ways, depending on the genres you write in, science fiction conventions, going and haunting the writer track and maybe the academic tracks can be really helpful. I met my best and longest running beta reader at a science fiction convention. We were in a philosophy panel, and I was sitting next to this woman who's about 30 years older than me, who was raggedly dogging the panel. She was razor sharp. And every single one of the people on the panel, she was giving a hard time. And it was really propelling the discussion. And I was very, very entertained. And it was clear from the questions she was asking that she and I had nothing in common, philosophically. But there are some people in the world who it's a pleasure to disagree with, and you can tell by the way that they engage other people that they're interested in the conversation. They're not the kind of people that will get offended by being disagreed with. And so, as the panel drew to a close, I pulled out one of my business cards and I turned to her and I said, "Hi, you and I agree on nothing, but I would love to disagree with you over coffee sometime." And she took my card. She said, "All right, I don't have any other panels I'm going to. You want to go get coffee?" And I actually did. So we made a date to go get coffee later in the convention, and we did, and we talked a bit, and we discovered that we were both writers very early in our career, working on our first serious professional novels, and we agreed to be writing buddies. We would send each other copies of works in progress for accountability more than anything, and we started reading each other's stuff and commenting on it, and she eventually gave up on writing, but she still betas my stuff, and she's really, really good. I'm really not looking forward to when she dies, because she's a fantastic beta reader. And I met her because I was sitting next to her at a convention. It's the kind of environment where you're likely to meet budding writers. So that could work if you're writing science fiction or fantasy. I don't think mystery writers conventions have panels like that, but they do have panels about forensics and other craft sort of things, and you may be able to meet writing buddies there. The common thread to all of this is start to try to find ways to get yourself into environments that are rich in fellow professionals that are likely to be willing to network. Look to form relationships with other people, sort of your class coming up. Because your graduating class is going to be a network. They're going to be friends that you have forever. At least some of them. Some of them, like any graduating class, some of them you'll fall out with or you'll drift away from. But you'll meet some people who are colleagues and friends for a long, long time. And you want to start forming those relationships, particularly since you've very obviously outgrown the resources that you have easily to hand. I hope that helps. It's a really good question. Thanks for sending it in. Now, this question has actually given me the thought that maybe it might not be a bad idea to start a mailing list or some other kind of solidarity group for those of you who are part of this podcast. If that's something that you think would help you out, go ahead and leave a comment on the blog at NaNoWriMoEveryMonth.com or send me email at feedback@jdsawyer.net. Because if that's the kind of thing that would help you guys, I'll look into seeing whether I can actually set something like that up so that you guys can network with each other and we can start maybe solving some of these problems that some of you are having finding beta readers and solidarity partners and things like that. And I'll see you tomorrow. NaNoWriMo Every Month is written and presented by J. Daniel Sawyer and produced by Artistic Whispers Productions. Visit our website at NaNoWriMoEveryMonth.com and leave a tip in the tip jar or join the Patreon to support this podcast. NaNoWriMo Every Month is copyright 2016 by J. Daniel Sawyer and Artistic Whispers Productions and is released under a Creative Commons Non-Commercial Attribution No Derivatives license.